Hey Walking Dead fans, this is a video about Shane leaving Rick in the hospital. We will look at what happened, a timeline of events, and a little on the psychology of it all. The iconic scene of Rick waking up from his coma to find the world has ended as he knew it made us all wonder what happened. We know Rick was shot in the line of duty and went into a coma.
The bitch shot me. You believe that? Shane, you do not tell Lori that happened. Ever. You understand? No. No. Okay. I'm right here with you. Stay with me. You hear me? You hear me?
At this point, I want to go ahead and say we're dealing with a TV show about an end of the world scenario, and it's like simply unreal and total fiction. The timeline and events we see do not always add up, so I'm saying you can't look too far into it without seeing the writing mishaps, production limits, and story oversights of the show. So with that said, I will be doing a specific video on the timeline for how long it was that Rick was in a coma or in the hospital when the outbreak started, etc. So look for that one soon. In that timeline, we will see that the outbreak may have started even before Rick was shot. Being a first responder, it seems that Rick and Shane would have known something about it, but no clues of this have been revealed. We do know that the outbreak had started while Rick was in a coma, and the scene we will see Shane trying to get Rick out but leaving him shows the outbreak is out of control. So at the point Shane is trying to get Rick out of the hospital, he knows what a walker is and that everything is now out of control. We see Rick probably hallucinating by seeing Shane there visiting. Shane does have the flowers we see later dried up on Rick's table, but was this a brief memory of an actual Shane visit with Rick being maybe semi-conscious at the time, or a complete hallucination? I want to say they meant it as a memory because of the same flowers. One production blunder I see is the full saline bag hanging on the pole. I'll come back to that one though later. Let's take a quick look at the scene. Shane hears the commotion out in the halls and goes out to see what's going on and maybe get some help. People are rushing by and he grabs a nurse, but she does not stop to help. He sees military personnel, and as he grabs a gurney, he sees military soldiers shooting civilians against a wall just before they themselves get overrun by walkers.
Whoa. Man, please, can you help me?
He takes the gurney back to Rick's room and tries to move him. He sees he's hooked up to equipment, so he puts him back down. Not knowing what to do, he panics as what seems to be an explosion rocks the building, cutting off the power. Soldiers come looking in each room. Shane ducks behind the bed. And here's another issue I have with the scene. It seems like the soldiers would have at least shot Rick in the head to avoid him becoming a walker and a threat. But maybe they thought at that point survivors in the hospital rooms would be evacuated. I mean, who knows?
Let me get you out of here, buddy. Okay. Come on, Corporal, move! Please, Rick.
He listens for a heartbeat, then checks the halls and sees walkers coming. He decides it's too risky to stay or attempt to get Rick out. So Shane barricades the door as a way to save Rick from the walkers or maybe more soldiers doing room checks. He knows he is not dead, but the risks seem very high and Rick's chances very slim. He did not want to abandon him, but he did. Later in the same episode, a drunk Shane confronts Lori about Rick's sudden, surprising return. Shane had told Lori and Carl that Rick had died.
Because you told me my husband was dead.
Boy, I didn't lie to you. All right, I didn't. Okay, do you know what it was like there? Huh? Things were falling apart.
They were slaughtering people in the hallways. It was a massacre. There were walkers everywhere. He was hooked up to machines, and I did not know what to do.
He tells Lori that he is dead so that she will leave for the city, effectively saving her life and Carl's. If they had gone back to try and get Rick, they most likely would have all died. In the end, it seems Shane really did love Rick, and before the outbreak did not have feelings for Lori. Rick and his family thought of Shane like family, and likewise. Afterwards, though, whatever feelings and emotion Shane had for leaving Rick and then saving Lori and Carl festered into a protector and provider type role, and that flourished into love and affection.
But then I had y'all to think about, didn't I? I had you and Carl, and I need to think about. I had to get you guys safe to Atlanta. That's what I had to do. No. I love you.
No, you're drunk. No, you're drunk.
I know.
James.
I think Shane knew Lori was leaning on him, and her and Carl were his reason for going, his reason to survive and to be sane. Even though it was Rick that broke it, Shane just could not keep it together. We've seen in the apocalyptic world that people need something to live for, to hold on to. And the straw that finally broke it all was Shane's opinion of Rick's leadership and his judgment calls. Shane also had a problem of having a bad approach. I like Shane as a character, and as we look back, it sometimes seems he might have been a better leader in the world they live in. Now about that saline bag, at the time Rick wakes up, it looks full. Shane has also picked up Rick and pulled his monitor electrodes loose from his chest. When we see him wake up, the electrodes are back, and he is under the covers again. I take all of this as production oversight and nothing more. It is my theory that the nurse we see in the hospital after Shane left did not also take care of Rick that whole time. Why would she keep blocking the door with the gurney each time? As we see Rick leaving the room, the gurney is still pushed against the door as if no one has been in or out of that room since Shane put it there. Referring back to the nurse, which I'll go over in another video, is a webisode called The Oath, which aired before season 4. In The Oath, it shows the hospital that Rick was in and a nurse that stayed behind to help take care of people. And in that webisode, you see the origin of who painted on the doors, "Don't open, dead inside." But watch for another video specifically on the webisode called The Oath. Of course, Rick could not have survived that long without care, so the mystery is questionable. How did he get a fresh saline bag? How did he get back under the covers? If no one checked on him at all, how did he survive for what could have been weeks? But these questions will be looked at in another video about the timeline of just before and just after the coma. Because one theory says Rick was unattended for possibly weeks, and another theory says it could have just been a couple of days. So, the few things that are really off, though, is Shane, being a first responder, did not check Rick correctly for a pulse or heartbeat. You know, basic first aid tells us that you put a cheek or ear to the mouth and check for air, for breathing. The pulse is checked at the neck, ahead to the chest. Maybe it's checking to see if the chest is rising and falling at all. It just seemed off to me that he checked him that way.
I even took my ear and I put it on his chest and I listened to a heartbeat and I did not hear one.
The main idea of this video, though, is Shane's actions and thought process as he left Rick at the hospital. So let me know your thoughts in a discussion below about Shane leaving Rick, the surroundings in the hospital, or something that seemed off like Shane checking for a pulse. Be sure to check out my other videos. The links are in the description. And as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more dead stuff.